The radical. Fundamental principles of freedom. Rational self-interest. And individual rights. Fundamental principle. This is the Yaron Brook Show.
All right, everybody, welcome to the Yaron Brook Show on this, what is it? It's Tuesday. It's September 9th. Thanks for joining me. I hope everybody's having a good week so far. All right, what am I missing here? Oh yeah, I gotta press start. All right, there we go. That's better. All right, so very echoey today. Are we echoey right now? I mean, echoey during the music, echoey with me speaking, echoey. I don't know. It was echoey early on because there were some issues, but hopefully those will be resolved. Yes, now, echoey now. I don't know. Now, all right. So, is the sound reasonable? Unreasonable? Impossible? Not real bad. You sound like you're in a small, tiled room. That's not good. It's the same room I've been in every day. Like you're in a bathroom. All right. It's the same room I've always been in, and nothing has changed. Nothing is different. It is what it is. I'm trying to see. I'm speaking through the right microphone. We're going through, yes, the right mic. Everything is right. Bathroom acoustics. Robotic underwater. All right, what do I do about this? Let's see. I can. Let me just see if I can play with any of the audio settings here. Nothing allows it to get any better there. Hi Apollo. Plate reverb to my eyes. What the hell is that? It's doable. We can listen. Better than 6 feet under, but at least we have you. So let's go. All right. Anyway, let's just go. I don't know that I can change the acoustics of the room right now, and I don't have a mixer to adapt the sound. It is curious that it's exactly the same setup as every day, and yet here we are. All right. So Israel continues to surprise. I guess this government continues to surprise in its willingness to do bold and courageous actions. This one in particular, not so much a big surprise in terms of capabilities, but a big surprise in terms of willingness to do it. So Israel today bombed the Hamas, a gathering of the Hamas leadership in Qatar. And basically this was the entire leadership of Hamas, including the people engaged, the leadership of Hamas engaged in negotiating with Israel and with the United States with the mediation of Qatar over the ceasefire. And Israel bombed the assembly with the hope of killing the entire leadership of Hamas. And what's bold and I think ambitious and brave about this is that Israel had to know that nobody would support it in doing so. That is, Qatar pretends and plays the game, and everybody plays with Qatar the game, that Qatar is an ally of the United States, an ally of the West. Remember, the United States has its largest military base in the Middle East, the largest airfield in the Middle East, in Qatar. When Iran was retaliating against the bombing of the nuclear facilities, they targeted the American airbase in Qatar. So Qatar is a friend of the U.S. That is how the U.S. sees it. That's how the U.S. presents it to the world. That's how Qatar sees it, how Qatar presents it to the world at least. And Qatar is also part of the Gulf states. It's has a rocky relationship with Saudi Arabia and with the United Arab Emirates, but overall, it is part of that community. It is part of that world. So Israel had to know that by doing this, they would be condemned by everybody. Indeed, as we will see, they have been condemned by everybody. In addition, this is the team that they're negotiating with, and yet they're willing to kill them. That suggests that Israel no longer cares about the negotiation. Now, that in and of itself is a bold statement, given 2 years now of Israel negotiating with Hamas in Qatar. I mean, indeed, the head of the Israeli Mossad and the head of the Israeli Shin Bet, the internal security of Israel, have traveled to Qatar and negotiated there. Witkoff is often in Qatar negotiating. And Israel has been committed to negotiating for the last 2 years. And yet, this strike clearly sends the indication that, okay, negotiations are over. This is it. And you all will pay. The immediate justification for this attack that was given was the terrorist attack yesterday in Jerusalem, where a gunman, a couple of terrorists just shot up a bus, killing I think it was 6 Israelis and injuring many others, which Hamas took credit for. So Hamas took credit for the attack. And Israel said, okay, if you're going to take credit for it, you're going to pay for it. And this was in retaliation for that. So Hamas took credit for it. They praised it. They called it heroic. And add all that up, Israel had to respond, and and this was the response. But again, a response that they knew would be incredibly unpopular, and probably fairly unpopular within Israel itself, given that we're talking about negotiating for the hostages, and given that people believe now that the hostages are in more danger now than they ever have been, and many of them might be killed as a response of this attack. Anyway, so that is the kind of the background of this attack. While the attack was going on, so it was involved 10 Israeli aircraft. My guess is F-35s, and which flew over Syria and into Iraq and launched the attack, I believe, from southern Iraqi airspace. They had refueling both on the way there and on the way back. These are very vast distances. And Israel is not flying direct because it is avoiding Jordanian airspace and it is avoiding Saudi airspace so as not to antagonize the Jordanians and the Saudis. So it is flying around through Syria and then down through Iraq in order to get to the Gulf. So it had to refuel the airplanes on the way there, and I understand on the way back as well. When the airplanes were starting to cross Syria and so on, American radars detected them, satellites detected Israeli movement. American command immediately contacted Israeli command and asked what the hell was going on. What was this deal about? I guess the Israelis told the Americans that they were on their way to attack Qatar, to attack the Hamas meeting in Qatar. The American forces let the Trump administration know that this was happening. From what I understand, Trump called Witkoff and told Witkoff to let the Qataris know that this was happening. At least this is the official story, right? But I believe it. I don't think Trump would have ever agreed to this. I mean, Trump is friendly with the Qataris. He's buddies with them. He likes to, Anyway, I do not think that Trump would have authorized this strike if he had known about it in advance. And indeed, it sounds like they told the Qataris about it. Now the question really is going to be, did they let the Qataris know before so that the Qataris could warn Hamas, or did, as some news reports saying, they only let them know once the missiles were in the air? I don't know, but the reality is this, that in spite of the fact that at this building, the entire Hamas leadership was meeting, all of them. We've got Khalil El-Hayya, who is the leader of Hamas, but also included Mohammed Darwish, Mosab Badran, Tahar El Nuna. These are basically the entire remaining leadership of Hamas, the ones that are still alive, including those who flew in to Qatar from Turkey, right? And the idea was that they were there to discuss the ceasefire agreement, the last one that was submitted by Witkoff. The reality is that it appears that all the senior Hamas leaders survived the attack, in spite of the fact that the building, the entire first floor is devastated. The entire inside of the building looks like it is completely devastated. So one wonders how they survived it, right? And I don't know, and we don't know. I don't know that anybody knows except the people who actually do know. Did the U.S. let them know in advance so as to shield them from it? 5 Hamas operatives did die in the attack, including the son of Hamas's leader and some other prominent people within Hamas, but none of the senior leadership actually died in this attack. So hard to tell. At least, again, these are the reports that are coming out of Qatar. And Hamas is usually pretty good about admitting when their people are killed, particularly in an open place like Qatar where it can be checked. So it looks like the attack failed to kill the Hamas leadership in spite of the fact that it should have been a surprise, and they were all in this building, and this building was indeed struck, and you can see photos of it with the entire inside of it destroyed. So again, I don't know whether who let them know if this was announced in advance or just the bombs didn't do the job. It could be that they weren't on that floor, they weren't in that building, they weren't in that room. It could be that it just wasn't enough. That Israel needed to launch more bombs in order to destroy the building completely. The building is not collapsed. The building is not completely destroyed. So it's possibly that. It is true, in the meantime, that the United States has condemned the attack. White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt has said, quote, unilaterally bombing inside Qatar does not advance Israel or America's goals. The president views Qatar as a strong ally and friend of the United States and feels very badly about the location of this attack. Now, I just want to give you a sense of Qatar. Qatar is well known to be the main funder of ISIS and was the main funder of ISIS throughout the 2010s. At the same time as the United States was launching airplanes from a Qatari airbase to attack ISIS, ISIS was funding them at the same time. Qatar is also the largest funder of Middle East programs and other programs in American universities that undermine America, undermine Israel, undermine Western civilization at American universities. Qatar is by far the largest funder of that. Qatar is also the only really ally Iran has in the Gulf and in the kind of the Arab world. Qatar has stayed friendly with the Iranians and be supportive of the Iranians in spite of all the Iranians' terrorist activities and development of nuclear weapons. To make it very clear, and I've been talking about this for years, decades, but years, really, at least 10 years, 15 years. Qatar is an enemy of the United States. Qatar is an antagonist, is an underminer of American interest in the Middle East. It's an underminer of American interest in the United States. Again, it funds in the U.S. It is the one funding the demonstrations at the universities. It funds leftist causes. It funds anti-American, anti-Western civilization causes in the United States. If you look at external funders of American universities, you'll find Qatari foundations at the top of the list over and over and over again. Middle East programs, which are anti-Israel, anti-West, all funded by Qatar. It used to be Saudi. It used to be a mix of money. Today, it is dominantly the Qataris. Qatar is a force of ill in the Middle East. It is the one place in which the Muslim Brotherhood feels safe. The Muslim Brotherhood, which is kicked out of Egypt, kicked out of Saudi Arabia, has found a home in Qatar and uses Qatar as its base to spread its militant Islamist, jihadist ideology throughout the Middle East and throughout the world. It also is the place from which they use their propaganda. Al Jazeera is a Qatari news organization, a news organization that does everything that it can to undermine Israel, to undermine the U.S., to undermine U.S. interests in the Middle East. It is to some extent at least, a Muslim Brotherhood media outlet. And of course, Hamas is of course a spin-off of the Muslim Brotherhood. Hamas was the Muslim Brotherhood of Palestine in its origination. Qatar also facilitated huge amounts of money to Hamas and houses Hamas leadership and has housed Hamas leadership for years and years and years. So it is placed host to some of the world's most brutal, horrific, murderous terrorists. And yet, unilateral bombing inside Qatar does not advance Israel and America's interest. The President views Qatar as a strong ally. Indeed, according to the White House, President Trump was only notified about the Israeli strike, once it was happening. And that the president, quote, feels very badly about the location of the strike and has assured Qatar. He immediately spoke to Bibi. I'm sure he yelled at Netanyahu. And he then immediately spoke to the emir, the dictator of Qatar, and assured Qatar that there will be no further attacks against its territory. And basically gave the riot act to Netanyahu, explaining that that was now the rule. So this administration continues to coddle dictators, to appease evil, to negotiate with evil. And it continues to, hamper Israel's efforts to defend itself. The United States, years ago, certainly after October 7th, should have withdrawn its support for Qatar and denounced any attempt to negotiate with Hamas. Hamas has played Israel. It's played the Americans. It plays the negotiations for time. It never gives direct answers. It never gives definitive answers because it is playing for time, because it knows time is on its side. Why? Because it's funding all these protests, and it knows that the longer this takes, the more Gazans die, the more they can pretend there's famine, the more pressure the world community will place on Israel, the more isolated Israel becomes, the more Hamas wins. And that has been the strategy from the beginning. Trump is doing what Trump does, one day hot, one day cold. He supports Bibi on some things, and he restricts Bibi on other things. And he is friendly. His primary alliance in the Middle East is not to Israel. It's not to Bibi. It's the Saudis, and it's the Qataris. The Saudis have already, of course, denounced this. The Jordanians have denounced this. Pretty much all European countries have denounced Israel's action. And the United States will not stand by Israel on this one because of its commitment to the Qataris and its friendship to the Qataris. And again, the fact that the United States continues to try to negotiate with Hamas is weakness. I think Israel finally has figured out the right attitude. The right attitude is to kill Hamas leadership wherever it happens to be, find them and kill them. If they failed this time, it is sad. It is maybe even a tragedy. But they should keep at it, no matter where they are. In Turkey, in Qatar, no matter where they hide, they should know that they will never be safe, that Israel will hunt them down and kill them. And no matter what America thinks, Israel will destroy every last remnant of Hamas. At the same time, Israel is trying to kill Hamas leadership. It has also issued a sweeping evacuation order this morning, calling on all Gaza City residents to immediately leave by designated corridors, while Israel intends to strike and enter Gaza City and basically take control over the entire, into the most populated region in Gaza. The notice that was issued today states that, quote, the IDF is resolute in defeating Hamas and will operate in Gaza City with overwhelming force, as it has done throughout the Strip. It instructed residents to, quote, evacuate immediately. Supposedly more than 100,000 have already evacuated the city, with between 100 and 300,000 remaining in the city. According, Foreign Minister Gideon Saar has said that Israel's committed now to ending the war based on Trump's proposal in accordance with the principles established by its Security Cabinet, which means the defeat of Hamas and the destruction of the Gaza Strip. Israel will take Gaza City. Now, it can't kill every Hamas member. Many of the Hamas members are evacuating with the rest of the civilian population. They dress up as civilians and they evacuate. But taking control over the city, the one place where Hamas has operated over the last few months fairly freely, the one place where there are still many tunnels from which they keep attacking Israeli forces and in which they are holding the hostages. I do believe that the chances of recovering the hostages and getting the hostages out of Gaza alive is very low at this point. As Israel advances, it is likely that Hamas will kill the hostages, as it has done in the past. But this is the only path available to Israel. The only path available to Israel is the complete occupation of Gaza and the complete destruction of Gaza, because every building, every tunnel is a place in which Hamas can establish itself. It's a place in which Hamas can try to ambush Israeli soldiers. It's a place in which Hamas can hide its own troops and to hide hostages. Israel has to control the space. It has to control Gaza, take it over, and determine its long-term fate itself. It cannot trust anybody else to do it for you. I'll just take this question because it's relevant to what we're talking about right now. David says, what if Hamas is hiding in Turkey? Should Israel attack them there? I'll just say that if Hamas is in Turkey, then no, I wouldn't say that Israel should launch aircraft and bomb a building in Turkey. But Israel has done, you can do it in other ways. Israel could send assassins in and kill them there. It's assassinated terrorist leaders in Western countries. So there should be no restriction on trying to do it in Turkey as well. But yes, absolutely they should try to kill them in Turkey. They should kill them in America if they're in America. They should kill them wherever they happen to be. Wherever they are, they should worry about their phone exploding. They should worry about their car exploding. They should worry about somebody putting a bullet in their head or somebody pricking them with a poisonous needle. They should live in fear for the rest of their life, under the fear of being assassinated. Assassination, death, is the only thing these monsters deserve. And I think Israel has now made it clear that they're willing to do that. Sadly, instead of supporting that, the United States is condemning the attack and giving Hamas breathing room. It's giving Hamas space to survive for another day. But that is the tragedy. But that is, again, this is completely and utterly expected of a unprincipled administration that cozies up to dictators and that has shown over and over again its sympathies to Qatar. So, it's sad It's sad that this is the Trump administration's position, but it's not that surprising. It's not so surprising at all that it is that. So what's really sad is that Israel failed to kill the people that needed killing, which were the leaders of Hamas. So it does seem like, well, 5 of Hamas's members, fairly well-known people, were killed. The main target, particularly the exiled Gaza chief Khalil el-Hayya, was not killed, and they'll try again hopefully next time. But there's a missed opportunity. I hope it doesn't turn out, because this would be really tragic, that it is the United States that tipped the hand and saved the lives of these Hamas leaders. In Israel, they're very worried now about what happens to hostages and whether the hostages will pay the price for this attempted assassination. Right. Yeah, and Hamas will use this. Hamas will use this to try to tear Israel apart by blaming Israel for whatever happens to the hostages. All right. Let's see. I'm just checking out if there's anything new that has happened, anything live that's happened. Here, the son of Hamas, Mosab Hassan Yousef, who is the son of a Hamas leader, who's been in the West, has become very pro-Israel and very pro-Western and very anti-Hamas. The son of Hamas has come out and said the strike in Qatar should have been done 2 years ago, and I agree completely. Too late. He is so good. He is so uncompromising and principles. Yes. Let me see if I can get you to do a quote from him. Here it is. This should have been done almost 2 years ago. Mosab Hassan Yousef, known as the Green Prince, told the Post. Qatar funded Hamas for many years. Hamas took sanctuary in Qatar. They thought they could not be reached, and they thought they were immune. To remind you, Yousef's father was Sheikh Hassan Yousef, who was a founding member of Hamas. He says Israel's actions send an unequivocal message. Quote, there is no immunity to those who kill innocent civilians, who butcher civilians and take hostages, then blackmail a nation in an attempt to bring the Jewish people and Israel as a nation onto its knees. And then he says, I don't think it's in their interest to harm the hostages. I think Israel did well by cutting this chain of brokers over the hostage situation. He said, Yousef believes Israel has a better chance of negotiating directly with Hamas's military wing in Gaza, with the guy directly responsible for the hostages. They need to stop negotiating with the people in Qatar at all. Haddad, he says, now Haddad knows that if he's not going to seal a deal with Israel, he is going to be dead as well. So I think that the chances, in my opinion, are better. We will see. Remember, Qatar is a tiny little country, but it has a lot of money and it has a lot of influence as a consequence of having a lot of money. All right. So put that aside. Israel will be entering Gaza City in the days to come. Scary times, I think, for many Israelis. Certainly scary times for if you have any relatives in the Israeli military. This is not going to be easy. This is going to be, again, street to street. building-to-building combat, urban combat. This is why Israel's trying to evacuate as many people as possible so it can come in, but everything will be booby-trapped. Israel's done really well in minimizing its own casualties, relatively speaking, in its entry into Gaza in the past. Let's hope it continue to do this. I have my nephew is I don't know if he's in Gaza, but he probably will be in Gaza. So I should call my sister and find out, because not good. All right. Anyway, that is the story in Israel. We will see where this develops. I fear that the world turning against Israel will only intensify with this attack on Qatar, because of Qatar's massive influence. I mean, can you imagine Tucker Carlson right now? I mean, Israel just attacked his sponsor. And many people on the American right who are sponsored by Qatar. There's a lot of Qatari money flowing into the United States, as I said, not just to the left, but to the right as well. And so there's going to be a lot of people flipping out over this on the left and on the right. All right, interesting numbers came out today. So you know how jobs numbers, GDP numbers, ultimately every number that the government releases is every month they look backwards and they revise it, and then twice a year they do a big revision. So right now, for example, today they revise the numbers from April 24 to March 25 in terms of employment, and then those numbers are not really final. The only final numbers for April 24 to March 25 will be released in February 26. So they're constantly revising based on new information. There is no real-time info. We don't live, luckily, we do not live in a surveillance society. So we don't have real-time. American companies are not required to let the government know every time they hire and fire an employee. So the government statisticians, I don't know why they exist at all, but the government statisticians are constantly trying to figure out how many jobs are created, how many jobs are lost, what's unemployment, and what is job creation in the economy. And it's a noisy, messy, and it turns out very, very inaccurate thing they're trying to do. And it seems like it's only getting more inaccurate. Now, the Trump administration is telling us that the reason it's getting more inaccurate is because of politics. Maybe it is politics driving this, but it's not obvious that it's politics. It could very well be that the data is just more difficult to track for a variety of technological and a variety of just business reasons, reasons in the reality of the world out there. So here's the bottom line. So as of earlier today, it had been believed that between April 2024 and March 2025, so mostly under Biden, but last couple of months under Trump, February and March, that the United States had created, in the United States, there had been created 1.8 million jobs during that period. It turns out, at least according to the latest numbers and the latest evaluations, that only 847,000 jobs had been created during that period. That is, it turns out that the job market during the latter part of the Biden administration and the early part of the Trump administration has been much worse than previously believed to have been. This is a huge revision, negative 911,000 jobs. And a lot of people are going to be looking at this and figure out why they messed up by such a big number. Average job gains before the revision, 147 a month, 147,000 a month. Average job gains after revision, 71,000 a month. Now that means that, you know, if in a normal time, you need more than 71,000 jobs a month to hire everybody who is joining the workplace. But what's weird about it is that unemployment has not changed. The unemployment number has stayed constant. So there's a lot of messiness in these numbers. Last August, for example, the BLS reported 818,000 fewer jobs. So big downward revisions over the last 2 years. And by the way, last August was just before the election, and they were basically announcing that during Biden's administration, there had been 818,000 fewer jobs than the Biden administration had reported previously. So this was negative news for the Biden administration in terms of jobs just before the election. So it's hard to believe that this is all political. Maybe it is, but it's just hard to believe that it is. It just seems like their systems are broken. And maybe their systems broke, maybe the mechanisms by which they measure these things broke during COVID, and they have not managed to fix them then. I don't know what's going on, but it's clear that government data is really broken, and suddenly employment numbers are really broken. We don't have any other data on the economy, so can we trust government data on the economy? I don't know. But it's the only data we really have. You don't have much other data. You have the stock market, your bond market versus markets that are trading. You have earning reports of corporations and businesses. You have private hiring numbers, which are very messy and very noisy and only partial. We don't have aggregate statistics in the economy, and the fact that the government is incompetent and not very good at getting the numbers shouldn't be surprising to anybody. It's the government after all. So even if they're not biased and they're not trying to manipulate it, can we trust them in terms of just competence? Questionable. And of course, Trump is now appointed to the statistics agency, the agency that will be producing future reports. He is appointing, or this will go in front of Congress soon to be approved. He is appointing somebody who's very partisan, who is likely to try at least to manipulate the numbers in favor of Trump. So I'm not sure we could have trusted the numbers ever, and I certainly don't think we can trust the numbers into the future. Now, numbers produced by the Fed, I think, are much more at least independent. Again, are they right is a different question, but they're at least independent of politics. This is one of the problems of making the Fed non-independent, that is, reducing its independence, is the fact that it will lose even that ability, that at least its numbers are somewhat true. Yeah, the Labor Department's Bureau of Labor Statistics, that's a BLS, which is where all these revisions are happening, this is a really big deal. Now, economists expected estimated revisions to be between 400,000 and 1 million jobs negative, so this was pretty big. This is pretty big. All right. Let's see. I mean, what this really means from an economic perspective, and one of the reasons the markets have not responded very negative to this, because you would expect this again suggests that the economy is not doing well. The economy wasn't as good as people thought it was, as we all thought it was, or I thought it was last year, and everybody else based on the numbers, that it wasn't as good. Again, it wasn't recession, but it wasn't as good. The numbers this year suggest that this year is even worse. And yet the market is still up in record territory. And the reason for that is that as negative numbers get released, the likelihood that the Fed will reduce interest rates increases. And interest rates going down actually increases the value of assets. So you'd expect stock prices to go up as interest rates go down. And that's the reason why the stock market is not moving. So the Fed is looking at these numbers, is using these numbers, and there's no doubt that next week the Fed will lower interest rates. Now the question is going to be, will they lower it by 25 basis points or 50 basis points? And of course, the other question is, will lowering interest rates affect inflation? That is, what is the relation between interest rates and inflation? Short-term interest rates, which is what the Fed controls, it's not clear. Is the lowering of interest rates by the Fed an acknowledgement that they cannot get inflation? Inflation meaning, in this context, price inflation, consumer price inflation, the prices we pay for the stuff that we buy. Is them lowering interest rates a recognition that they cannot and are not going to work to get inflation, that kind of inflation, down below 3%? And are they going to, the Fed target for inflation is 2%, which is absurd, but it's 2%. Maybe the Fed target really now, if they lower interest rate next week, is 2%. It's 2%, sorry, 3%, because they don't seem to be making an effort to lower it below 3%. So part of the problem with the Fed is they've got this dual mandate, full employment, so they look at the employment numbers, and low inflation. They should have one mandate. If they should exist at all, they shouldn't. They should not be a Fed, but if the Fed's going to exist, it should have one mandate. That mandate should be basically stable monetary policy. How you measure stable monetary policy is very difficult. It's not 2% inflation. It's not setting an inflation target at all, because as we said, CPI or PCE, however you want to measure price inflation, is not capturing the full effect of monetary inflation. So you want to eliminate monetary inflation, you have to find other ways to do it. There are a variety of suggestions out there, but a Taylor rule, other rules, but nominal GDP, targeting nominal GDP. But of course, the best solution would be to get rid of the Fed and have a free banking. But monetary policy set by banks, by independent, free banks, unregulated banks. But that is not going to happen in my lifetime. So I'd rather see a Fed that is better than the existing Fed than a Fed that is destroying money and destroying the economy. Anything is better than the kind of rule they have right now, which is no good. But the only alternative right now to Powell is Trump, and Trump wants basically low interest rates no matter what. He doesn't want a rule. He doesn't want a principle. He doesn't want guidance. He doesn't want to limit the Fed. He wants an unlimited Fed who lowers interest rate, just like Erdogan in Turkey, insistent on low interest rates, and in spite of inflation, and drove inflation into high double digits as a consequence, and would not listen, because his whole idea is, in Islam you have low interest rates. You have to push interest rates down. Trump is like any other authoritarian who wants a short-term fix, and low interest rates, lowering interest rates by 1.5 to 3%, which is what Trump has talked about, very quickly would generate a real pop economically, and then real bad stuff would happen. But that's farther away, and pragmatism basically says you can't think into the long. Who knows what will happen in the distance? All you have to do is do what works right now. All right. Okay, a number of other issues. Let's see. Murdoch. Yes, there's been a lot of rumors and a lot of suspense around the fate of the Rupert Murdoch empire. This has been litigated. It's been in courts. Rupert Murdoch that owns Fox, and it owns News Corp. Basically, is the owner of Fox News, the New York Post, the Wall Street Journal, but also news assets all over the West, certainly in the UK and in Australia. It is a conservative, basically, media empire. And Rupert Murdoch, who is 94 years old, wants to make sure that it stays conservative. And he has wanted Lachlan Murdoch, who is his son, his youngest son, to inherit the empire and to keep it conservative, because Lachlan is a conservative. His other 3 children, his 5 other children, his other 3 who are contending for this, are much more moderate or liberal than Lachlan is, and yet they were promised control over the media empire, and this has been, and Murdoch has tried to change his will, to change basically the state, and this has been a massive fight, and has gone to court, suing each other, and they sat down and they negotiated, and the family has ultimately created a structure now that settles all the disputes, and it looks like Lachlan will indeed maintain control over Fox News and News Corp. He will pay his siblings. His 3 other siblings will each get, I think, $1.5 billion for their shares in the media enterprise. He will control something called the Murdoch Family Trust, which will control the media enterprise. He will control that with his 2 younger sisters, Grace and Chloe. I don't know anything about their politics, but basically he will be able to determine the fate of it. This trust will stay in existence until 2050. Therefore, his control will stay in existence until 2050, at which point, I guess the trust will be dissolved and Grace and Chloe will get their share or something like that. But anyway, don't feel bad for the 3 older siblings. They each get, I was wrong, now 1.5 billion. Poor them, they only get 1.1 billion each. This is, of course, on top of the several billion they already have, that they've already inherited from their father, from Rupert Murdoch. So Rupert Murdoch can now die in peace, knowing that his right-wing conservative media empire is secure in the hands of Lachlan, and will stay so. So, it's there's been a lot of fighting, a lot of disputes, a lot of intrigue, a lot of backstabbing. It's a real family drama. They'll probably make a mini series out of this. A number of books will be written from this, but it does look like at this point it has ended and it has been resolved, and it's done. It's done for now. All right, I mentioned yesterday that the U.S. has beefed up its presence in Puerto Rico, the U.S. military, indeed by sending F-35s to Puerto Rican airports. Well, today, Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth and the Joint Chief of Staff, General Dan Kane, visited Puerto Rico. I guess that was yesterday, on Monday, in order to send a clear message that Puerto Rico is not going to be kind of a forward staging ground for the U.S. military's operations in the Caribbean and vis-a-vis Venezuela, that they are going to, and Hegseth stated this, that they're going to be vigilant about stopping or doing everything they can to stop the infiltration of drugs into the United States through the Caribbean, and particularly those drugs coming from Venezuela. We know that last week they blew up a vessel. Supposedly 11 people died on it, even though they've produced no evidence verifying that it was gang members, that they were cartel members who were on it. It was blown up. I don't know under what authority the President of the United States is blowing up ships in the Caribbean, in international waters, but he is, and he's not asking for anybody's authority. There was a big heated exchange between J.D. Vance and I guess Rand Paul. Rand Paul very much opposed this attack, but even if it's justified, Rand Paul would oppose it. So Rand Paul just is way too much of a pacifist for my liking. Anyway, they are out to get this Tren de Aragua, which is a criminal group that the administration is connected or claims to connect to Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro. You could argue that what they really want is to overthrow Maduro. They're also there, of course, to protect interests, the U.S. interests in Guyana. Guyana is south of Venezuela. It's a small little country that has massive oil reserves. It is now, on a GDP per capita basis, the richest country in Latin America. Not because it's particularly productive, not because it's particularly anything, but just because it has so much oil right now. It's such a small country. Venezuela has its eye on Guyana. It has disputed territory. It would like those oil resources. It needs to replenish its coffers. It's going into the drug trade in order to do that. They would like to, and they have threatened Guyana with military action. I think part of the U.S.'s presence in the Caribbean and close to the Venezuelan shore is basically to signal to Maduro, don't you dare go to Guyana. The United States, it's American oil companies that are working in Guyana to retrieve the oil there. The Hegseth spoke in front of sailors and Marines in Puerto Rico. He told them that they are on the front lines of defending the American homeland. He said, make no mistake, what you're doing right now, it's not training. This is the real world exercise on behalf of vital national interests of the United States. He added Puerto Rico is most obvious and nearest place to Venezuela. And this administration has signaled for a while that there would be a paradigm shift in how we do security operations in the Western Hemisphere. It's clear that the Trump administration wants to resurrect the Monroe Doctrine. The Western Hemisphere is ours. We dictate what happens here, and we will not let Maduro do what he wants to do. Maduro is anti-American, and we might get rid of him if we so choose. And the excuse that will be given will be the war on drugs. The war on drugs has been a massive success, as you all know, since it was launched in the early 1970s. It has done nothing but reduce the amount of drugs flowing into the United States and reduce the death rates from drug. Oh, maybe that's not true. The drug war indeed has been a massive failure, as you would expect when you have a war on an inanimate object. Certainly, the United States replacing Maduro in Venezuela would be a good thing. I wouldn't be opposed to doing that, but I also don't think it's something worth risking the lives of American troops for. America has no vital national interest in Venezuela, as long as Venezuela is not a real, actual security threat to the U.S. If Venezuela does not house, as far as we know, Russian troops, it does not house Chinese troops. More likely, Cuba does house at least Chinese troops, so that might be more of a reason to go after Cuba than to go after Venezuela. But anyway, if Venezuela gets toppled and if no American troops get hurt in the process, I'm all for it. If the United States is willing to bomb the presidential palace and get rid of Maduro that way, and transition Venezuela peacefully after Maduro is gone into a freer country and a country that has even a semblance of respect for its own people, that would be good. It would also reduce the number of people leaving Venezuela and heading towards the United States and becoming illegal immigrants in the United States. It's going to be interesting to see what the next few months are. As I told you, the Trump administration's national defense policy hasn't been officially came out, at least the draft of it suggests a pivot away from Europe, which was expected, a pivot away from China, which is a surprise, and a pivot towards Latin America, towards home, towards America's borders in Latin America, which is not surprising, but the pivot away from China is a surprise. And if you take away resources from the Chinese front and you bring them into the Latin American front, yeah, you can deploy a lot of resources into going after Venezuela and into trying to stop the drug trade. But stopping the flow of drugs has not been successfully done, really ever, anywhere, as far as I know. They tried it with prohibition, with alcohol. Didn't work there either. All right, I got a question yesterday or the day before, I think from Michael, about Mamdani, so I thought I would update you. There's now a new poll out about the New York election. And it seems that Mamdani has this really wrapped up. He has a solid lead with the current field of three opponents: the Republican Cuomo and the current mayor of New York. Mamdani leads by a huge margin, so he would actually get 46%. Cuomo, who would come in second, would get 24%. Adams and Sliwa would get something less than 24%, but Mamdani would be a shoo-in in a 3 versus 1. If Trump gets his way, supposedly Trump is putting pressure on Adams to drop out and on Sliwa, who is a Republican, to drop out. And if it's just Mamdani versus Cuomo, Mamdani still wins, 48 to 44. Now, it's stunning to me, and it should be stunning to you, that there are 48% of New Yorkers, 48% of New Yorkers would vote for an anti-Semitic, anti-Israel, bleeding heart socialist to be who wants to reduce the amount of policing in New York, to be the next mayor of the city. I mean, it is really amazing that there are that many idiots, crazies, nuts in New York City. Now, I know Cuomo is not a very attractive alternative. I think Adams is actually more attractive than Cuomo, but New Yorkers don't think that way. So I get that Cuomo is not very attractive, but at this point, you got to go with not voting for Mamdani. If you do Adams versus Mamdani, just Adams, Mamdani wins 55 to 36. So New York is so bad right now, it's not at all. Adams is corrupt, there's no question about that. But Adams' corruption is better than Mamdani's socialism. Cuomo's corruption and sleaziness generally is better than Mamdani's socialism. But this is what we are. This is the complete implosion of the Democratic Party. And by the way, this is gonna be really bad for the Democratic Party. Not that I worry about them too much, but this is awful for them because the base of the Democratic Party is going to say, if Mamdani wins, you see, we need to go more socialist. We need to go further to the left. If they do that, then the right will win every single election. I mean, Mamdani can win, a socialist can win in New York and maybe in San Francisco, although San Francisco has gone significantly moderate. Even LA has gone pretty moderate. But, you know, New York, you can win in New York, and you can win in a few other places, Portland, Oregon, Chicago, more about corrupt leftists than socialists. But yeah, they can win in some of these cities. They can't win in the country. They can't win in a general election. They can't even win enough districts in Congress. But if this is the tilt the Democratic Party takes, instead of going in the abundance direction, they go in the, oh no, let's socialize everything direction, then the Democratic Party is finished. It on a national scale, it is finished. It might be successful for a while in New York, and it won't be successful in New York for very long because Mamdani will fail, but it is finished. My guess is that most New Yorkers who are voting for Mamdani, my guess, half the people, half of the 48% who are voting for Mamdani are voting for him under the assumption that he won't be as bad as he sounds. He won't actually do the really bad things he says he will do. It's the same logic that led people to support Trump. Oh no, he won't be as bad as he says. He won't really do the tariffs. He won't really round up immigrants and put them in camps. No, that won't happen. He's better than the other guys who will go with him, but he won't do the radical, crazy stuff. And then they do. And then what do? It's too late. And it's your fault. Americans want fascism. They don't want socialism. Americans want government involvement in the economy, but they don't want the kind of Mamdani socialism. They don't want the woke. They don't want the PC. They don't want no policing, the defund the police. They don't want criminals to get off with light sentences. They don't want the social stuff that socialism brings with it. And they also don't want the government to own grocery stores. They want the government to control. They want fascism. They don't want Mamdani socialism. A majority of, Maria says a majority of Democrats favored socialism over capitalism in a recent poll. They had a more favorable view of socialism than of capitalism. I'm not sure that is even true in the latest Pew survey. But they didn't have a very favorable view. That is, the view of socialism was not a majority. What they support is the mixed economy. Let's see. Let me get you the latest views about. Yeah. Okay. So here's the actual numbers. It looks like I was wrong. That Marius was right. A new Gallup poll finds the U.S. adults overall are more likely to have a positive view of capitalism than socialism. Democrats feel differently. According to the survey, only 42% of Democrats view capitalism favorably, while 66% have a positive view of socialism. Now remember, they think socialism is Denmark. They think socialism in Denmark, and let me tell you, I'm pretty sure grocery stores in Denmark are not owned by the government. Capitalism's image has slipped in the United States with U.S. adults overall since 2021. The survey finds the results show a gradual, persistent shift in Democrats' support for the two ideologies over the past 15 years, with socialism rising as capitalism falls. The shift underscores deep divisions within the party about whether open support of socialism will hurt Democrats' ability to reach moderates or galvanize greater support from people who are concerned about issues like cost of living. Anyway, this is going to kill the Democratic Party. That's my prediction. That even though these surveys say people support socialism, they don't really. And at the end of the day, Bernie Sanders cannot win. And Bernie Sanders Donald Trump, who's a socialist of the right, if you will, can win. That is, I still think that you will see the Democratic Party, if it goes in the direction of AOC, shrink, and that the right will exploit that and exploit it quite dramatically to become bigger and more substantial. Anyway, just random news out of nowhere. Ethiopia. Ethiopia is a country with the second largest population in Africa. And Africa will be, I think within a few decades, will be the most populous continent. It will be more populated than Asia. So Ethiopia has got the second largest population in Africa after Nigeria. Ethiopia has just inaugurated Africa's biggest hydroelectric dam. It's a massive dam, a huge engineering feat that is going to power homes and industries across much of East Africa. Now it's also there's a massive dispute between Ethiopia, which sits high up on the Nile, and Sudan and Egypt that sit low on the Nile, and this dam is on one of the main tributaries of the Nile. But this is going to provide energy, cheap, clean energy to East Africa. Ethiopia's economy is already one of the better performing economies in the world, and certainly one of the better economies in Africa. This is an opportunity for them now to enhance their economy even more dramatically, and this dam took 14 years to complete. It cost $4.8 billion 15,000 people died during the construction of this dam. Just to give you a sense of what it's like to build a massive dam in Africa. Anyway, it's a done deal, and now we're talking about maybe the beginning of East Africa becoming more industrialized and starting to compete with Asia for some of those industrialization, some of those industry jobs, some of those jobs that Donald Trump and the right would like to bring back to the United States. I think Africa is not going to be competing with Asia for those jobs. I don't think the United States is in the running for the next textile mill or the next assembly plant. I think Ethiopia might be. I don't think the United States is. Yeah, I mean, good news for Ethiopia, good news for Africa, good news for other countries that can buy oil from, Ethiopia. A big problem for Ethiopia is that it doesn't have a port. It doesn't have a port, and it's landlocked, which creates real problems. It's dependent for that on Somalia, and of course Somalia is a complete basket case. It's not a country. It's just a place where warlords compete for territory. It therefore has then Kenya or Djibouti or Eritrea or Sudan. It depends on all of those for accessing a port. It could, and it's constantly in dispute with Djibouti and Eritrea over territory. It would love to conquer pieces of Eritrea and Djibouti, and you'll probably see significant war in this region, partially in order to access a port for Ethiopia. The other thing you might see, though, on a positive note, is trade. You could see Ethiopia providing electricity through this dam to a country like Kenya, Djibouti, and Eritrea in exchange for a much easier passage into their port cities. Now, Ethiopia used to have Eritrea. Eritrea declared independence, and there was a civil war, and it was declared an independent state at some point. But this dam now gives them something to trade for access to the sea. All right, finally, I think this was last week, a while ago, but today, the American Institute of Architects has announced that it opposes a Trump executive order that would make federal architecture beautiful again. The new order establishes classical and traditional styles as the preferred approach nationwide, with Washington, D.C. facing the strictest rules. Classical design becomes the mandatory default. Any alternative would require presidential approval. Now, oh my God, this is straight out of the Fountainhead, straight out of Ellsworth Toohey, and I think, Ellsworth Toohey's philosophy is so well adjusted, so perfect for Donald Trump. This is pure Ellsworth Toohey in the White House. So from now on, all federal buildings, all buildings built by the federal government must adhere to classical designs, must have Greek columns, or Roman columns, I guess. And they have strict proportions. And again, this is pure Ellsworth Toohey. This is pure everything the Fountainhead is against. The American Institute of Architecture points out that the federal projects in the past were based on the principles of functionality, economic, and appropriate to their surrounding while maintaining design excellence. That's a good criteria. Flexible. Yeah, Ellsworth is much smarter than Trump, but now you get the sense that it's Ellsworth truly running things from the background, right? So, yeah, let's kill modern architecture. Let's destroy innovation. Let's destroy functionality. Let's destroy excellence. Let's worship the past. Let's worship tradition. Let's worship the Greeks. I mean, there's other reasons to worship the Greeks, not this. And now let's make the president, who is the only one who can approve deviation from classical designs, make the president the chief architect of the United States government. It really is despicable, really is disgusting, really is consistent with the new conservative, the national conservatives. This is a national conservative type policy. This is the kind of stuff they like. This is part of his first term agenda. He has resurrected it now with more teeth this time. Sad, pathetic, un-American. I mean, we are the America that stands for progress, for innovation, for future, for functionality, for excellence. And now, let's worship columns. Let's worship whatever, right? So, really, really, really disgusting. And as for modern architecture, there is amazing modern architecture today. There's really, really good modern architecture. It's mostly in China and maybe in Dubai, but there's phenomenal modern architecture. You can find it in some American cities, in spite of American zoning laws, but you can find plenty of it in Hong Kong and in Shanghai and in all over Hangzhou and all over China, and again in Dubai and some in other Arab countries who are bringing the most talented Western architects in there. There's amazing modern architecture all over the United States. There really is. And Ayn Rand was a huge fan of good modern architecture, right? She was a big fan of Frank Lloyd Wright. And think about how it worked. Think about The Fountainhead. If you haven't read The Fountainhead, read The Fountainhead. Ayn Rand despised the idea of building like they did in Greece and Rome because they built it in Greece and Rome. The whole point of The Fountainhead is the idea of progress and independence and the creation of something new. And from an architectural perspective, building the architecture around the materials that are available to you today. You don't build a modern building with steel and glass and concrete the same way as you build a Greek building, which is great for its time, but the materials they had were extraordinarily limited. The knowledge they had of engineering was extraordinarily limited. And yet we should restrain our knowledge of engineering, not use new, amazing materials, because we have to fit into the style of people who did things the way they did it 2,000 years ago. It is barbarism. So it's a false alternative to present it as the worst of modernity versus Greek architecture. No, there's good modernity. There's good modern architecture. And that should be the standard. Good modern architecture. And it's, again, disgusting and pathetic that this is what the conservative movement stands for. But the conservatives, they love tradition. They love the past. They're not about the future. They're not about growth. They're not about new. They're not about bold. They're not about exciting. They're about the past. They're about the same. They're about tradition. They're about mimicking the past. All right, that is the news for September 9th, 2025. Yeah, we could do a whole show on architecture. Right? So you can argue about the various modern buildings being erected, right? Whether they're good or not. But you know that to build Greek and Roman buildings is stupid and dumb and wrong, aesthetically, morally, intellectually, philosophically, economically, functionally wrong. So let's make modern architecture better. But to defend this executive order by Donald Trump, it really is pathetic. Really is pathetic. This is much worse than building a bad modern building. A bad modern building is at least trying to do something new and something different. Building a Greek or Roman is surrendering to the past, surrendering to tradition. The argument should be about making modern better. That's what the focus should be. That's where the energy should be. But again, you want to see great architecture? Go to China. Innovative, interesting, exciting, groundbreaking. Some of it doesn't work. Some of it you go, that doesn't work. But at least they're trying. At least it's interesting. At least somebody is trying something new. And of course, it's very fascist in a sense that, let's dictate architecture from above. That sounds familiar, right? Let's have a national architect that dictates architecture from above. All right, we will now move to your Super Chat questions. You can ask in the Super Chat. We've done pretty well right now in the second hour. We're about $62 short of our second hour goal, so please consider supporting the show. Yesterday, we made it into, we made our goal, and that was great. We actually almost made it into the third hour. We didn't. We did 2 hours, but we made our second hour goal. Today, we've got a good number of $20 and $50 questions, so this is great. Not a lot of questions, but enough to, because they're mostly $20 and $50, enough to get us close to that goal. So $62, let's try to achieve that. You can use a sticker, or you can use a Super Chat. Sticker is if you don't want to ask a question, just support value for value, or trade with me. If you're getting value from the show, pay for it in a sense. And a question is great because you get to dictate. You get to dictate the content. I'll talk about whatever you want to talk about. You can ask a question for either $2 and I'll answer it. Let me also note that we have sponsors for the show. Alex Epstein. Alex Epstein is a leading thinker in the world on issues relating to climate change and issues related to energy and the use of fossil fuel. If you want to understand these topics, if you want to dig deeper into these topics, if you want to develop your ability to think about them, but also your ability to communicate, to argue with your relatives during the holiday season, coming up soon. It's coming up soon. And argue with the friends and your coworkers about these issues. Alex develops great talking points on these topics. So, sign up for Alex's Substack, alexepstein.substack.com, alexepstein.substack.com, a great friend of the show and a friend more broadly, and a great guy, and of course, massive influence on what's going on, or some influence on what's going on in the energy space with the Trump administration. Mary Eileen, thank you for the sticker. I'll go over all the stickers in a minute. The Ayn Rand Institute is promoting its Ayn Rand Institute Live. These are courses that you can sign up for. Don't have to be accepted. You don't have to, do an application. You just have to register. You can get a discount because you're a Yaron Brook show listener. It's 25YBS10 is the code. 25 YBS 10. These courses will allow you to dig deeper in the philosophy of objectivism, and they're at your pace. You can take them whenever you want. You can take classes whenever you want. You can take them live if you want, or take them by video, recorded if you want. You can do homework or not. You can decide on how involved and how engaged you want to be. A phenomenal opportunity to dig deep into the philosophy with some of the leading teachers in objectivism today. You've got a course on work and objectivism. Don Watkins, Tal Tzfani, and Anka Gate are in that course. You've got a course on the philosophy of objectivism taught by Anka. I think Opa, Lena Pikoff's Opa is the textbook for that. And you've got the philosophy through the novels. That is, how do the novels illustrate and teach us the philosophy? And that's with Anka Gate. So amazing classes. I think your understanding and knowledge of objectivism will be enhanced dramatically by taking them. So sign up. AynRand.org/start here, AynRand.org/start here, and click on the Ayn Rand Institute live courses, and you'll be able to register there and get more information about them. And finally, Hendershot Wealth, Hendershot, 2 T's at the end, Hendershot wealth.com/YBS, Hendershot Wealth, one word. Have products that help you with capital gains taxes, deferring them, reducing them. It has a huge wealth effect just to defer them, huge wealth effect. So I suggest looking up if you have a highly appreciated stock that you intend to sell one day or are selling right now, or you have a business that you intend to sell at some point and you will incur significant capital gains taxes. So hendershotwealth.com/YBS, or check out the video that I did with Robert Hendershot, where I interviewed him about this product and we talked about it. I think everybody should watch it because you'll learn a little bit about finance, you'll learn a little bit about taxes and about how taxes work, and about a little bit about markets as well, and how creative financiers come up with solutions to market problems or to tax problems. So check out the interview. It's on my YouTube channel. You can find it if you look at the playlists under sponsors. You can find the playlist there. All right. Let's check out the questions. Let's start with Harper Campbell, who has a $50 question. Harper says, a barrier to persuading people of objectivism is they believe our philosophy expects too much of people, that it's unrealistic for everyone to be self-sufficient, long-range thinkers, and it's cool to expect something that can never be lived up to. I mean, I think that's right. I think one of the biggest problems we have in convincing people is their own lack of self-esteem. And remember, they're projecting onto other people what they feel about themselves. I mean, there is a deep sense in which capitalism requires a people of self-esteem. Like, people have to have the confidence, the wherewithal, the knowledge that they are capable of surviving, doing well, flourishing when they are free. That they don't need a government-run safety net, that they don't need to be regulated in order to behave properly. They have to have the confidence that they can be successful and that they can be moral, that they won't be seduced, that they won't be by short-term, whims and seductions. And I think a lot of people don't have that self-esteem. It reminds me, even in morality, the whole, Ben Shapiro's criticism of selfishness as, what about the goal? If you're selfish, you're going to go with every slut at the bar who wants to sleep with you. You're going to go sleep with her because your immediate whims are more important to you, if you're selfish, than your long-term values. But that kind of attitude is an attitude of somebody who doesn't trust himself. Is an attitude that needs a God to sit over him saying, oh, I'm going to get you. If you do that, I'm going to get you. That can't actually trust their own rationality, can't actually trust their own values to guide their own life. And it's the same here. You know, people who don't have the confidence that they can economically, but really, in terms of just living, that they don't have the ability to live unless it's guided by other people, unless they have a safety net provided by the government, unless somebody makes it, you know, regulates them so that they don't misbehave. It's like God sitting above you, making sure you don't misbehave at the bar. Here is government sitting somewhere there, making sure you don't misbehave in your business. Yeah. Capitalism requires self-esteem. And self-esteem requires a morality of egoism. And you're not going to persuade people of objectivism if they don't have at least the willingness to try to find that self-esteem, to engage in that part of them. If they're cowardly, if they're cowards, they're not going to embrace objectivism. They're not going to embrace capitalism. Objectivism is demanding. It's demanding. It's demanding that you take your self-interest seriously. It demands that you take your life seriously. It demands that you pursue your self-interest ruthlessly. It demands that you don't give in to your emotions on a whim. It demands that you live with a capital L. Yeah, absolutely it's demanding. And this is why it's going to take a long time to get the culture on board. Not going to be easy. David says, so many similarities between the left and the right's policies. Do you now admit the horseshoe theory has its merits? No, because it's I don't know what horseshoe means. It's not a theory. I've explained this. I've given an explanation for this for 20 years. I've said the left and the right are the same. I don't need a horseshoe theory for that. I've said there's only one spectrum in politics. I've said this for a long, long time. And I had really said it, and I said, this is not original to me. There's one spectrum in politics. Individualism, collectivism. Capitalism, statism. And then left and right are both collectivists and both statists. Now, this part, the collectivist part, has lots of branches. It looks like an arrow. The individualist is the tip of the arrow. Sharp, one directional, there's only one path to individualism. But collectivism is where the arrow has the feather. There are lots of branches. There are lots of kinds of collectivism. There's a right-wing collectivism and left-wing collectivism. And some right-wing collectivism is fascist, and some right-wing collectivism is racist, and some right-wing collectivism is tribalist. And they overlap because they're all right-wing collectivism. And some left-wing collectivism is an out-and-out communist, and some of it is Denmark-like socialist, and some of it is out-and-out new kind of socialist, and some of it is racist, woke racist. But they're all collectivists, and they're all overlapping, and they're all similar, and they're all the same, because they're all collectivists, and they're all on that side of the political spectrum. So it's not a horseshoe with the moderates over here and bending the two extremes to be the same. That's ridiculous. I mean, there's a sense in which there's a horseshoe, but then there's an arrow, there's a straight line coming out. And the straight line is the line towards individualism. So again, the correct way to think about the political map is not the horseshoe theory. That is a corrupt way of looking at it. The correct way is to look at it as collectivism, individualism. There are lots of collectivists. Some of them are right-wing, some of them are left-wing. But they're all collectivists. And since they are collectivists, and since collectivism implies statism, then they're going to be similar. Because collectivism is similar. It's just a question of which group. And statism is similar. You want a powerful state. It's just no matter what you regulate. So, again, I agree. I've always said, always said that the left and right policies are the same. This is why, when everybody gets so upset about the left and, you have to vote for the right because they're better than the left, I go, really? They're just the same. They're all the same. They have the same basic policies. So, it's not, I do not admit that Dolce's theory has its merits. I have a much better theory, or Ayn Rand has a much better theory that explains the same phenomena and fits so much more, because you know what the alternative is. The alternative is not the bend in the horseshoe. The alternative is way over here, individualism, which is fundamentally different in every respect from the modern right and the modern left. And yeah, there are some old style conservatives that are a little bit in our direction. They're not on the horseshoe, you know, they're not in the collectivist bench. They're a little bit of an individualism. They're not quite individualist. They're a little bit pro-markets. They're not completely statists. And they're on their way. And then the classical liberals. And then there's objectivism. So it's a nice line with the splintering at the edge, the collectivistic edge. Thank you, David. And another $50 from David. How does stagflation happen? Well, I mean, stagflation is usually the consequence of inflation. I mean, there is this story that kind of Keynesians tell, that you flood the market with money causes the economy to grow, because the money starts circulating and people are buying and therefore production happens in order to satisfy the demand of people, and that production creates more economic activities. The economy grows as inflation grows. But that is completely unsustainable, because the reality is that inflation is devastating for the planning of production. It's devastating for entrepreneurs, for innovation, and for economic long-term planning. So ultimately, and sometimes right at the beginning, inflation cripples production. So you keep pumping more money into the economy, prices go up as a consequence. But production does not. Profits do not. Growth in business does not. Because businessmen don't know how to price things. The pricing signal is broken. They don't know how to think in terms of the future. What a price is going to be in the future. What is value going to be in the future? What should my discount rate be to today? What are my cash flows going to be expected in the future? Because inflation it completely messes all of that up, and therefore they stop producing, or they produce less, or they only produce in the short run without planning for the long run. And that cripples economic growth. And that's the stagnation part, and you have inflation with stagnation. But ultimately, I think every inflation lands up being a form of stagflation. Every inflation ultimately involves stagnation in real terms, because inflation destroys the productive process. It destroys the capacity to plan. It destroys planning for the future. It destroys entrepreneurship, innovation, and growth. Growth means planning for the future, and you can't because of inflation. David, another $50. Thank you, David. That's $200 today. Thank you. David says, have to go, so we'll catch the rest on the podcast. Glad to support YBS. Thank you, David. Really appreciate it. From Costa Rica. And yeah, let me know if you have any follow-up questions to those questions. Really appreciate the support. All right, we're only $8 away from reaching our second hour goal. $8 away. And by the way, thank you, Esoteric Economy, for the sticker. Thank you, Optimum. Thank you, Mary Aline. Thank you, Alan. Let's see if we had any other stickers. I don't know. Did we? No, that was it. But you can now do a sticker and get us to the $8 to the 2-hour goal just with 4 $2 stickers. There's your goal, 4 $2 stickers. Doodle Bunny, do you expect things to get dark ages bad, or just no growth, mixed economy bad, or something in between? Well, I mean, the short to medium run, I expect no growth, mixed economy, and then expect something in between. I do not expect dark age, unless it's kind of a nuclear catastrophe, a nuclear war. I don't expect dark ages. As I've often said, knowledge is too dispersed. Even if the United States sinks and destroys itself, there are plenty of other places around the world where knowledge is being preserved, where civilization can continue and can thrive. I do not expect the dark ages anytime. In the short run, the long run, I just don't expect it. I expect no growth, mixed economy, and maybe Great Depression like bad for a while, complete stagnation after a crash, some kind of crash that lowers the standard of living of everybody, and then really, really low growth for a long time. I expect it could be bad, but I don't expect it goes away. It goes away completely. But we will see. Technology and knowledge. Ultimately, it's knowledge that what is necessary in order to preserve civilization. What you need is knowledge, and then knowledge makes it possible to sustain technology. And even if we decide to turn against AI and against robots and against mechanization and against technology in this country, I don't know, some religious zealot Luddite comes to power 50 years from now in America and burns all the, blows up all the data centers that feed AI because AI is dangerous. I mean, I'm just making stuff up, right? Science fiction. Then somewhere else, they will continue to do it. So again, the dispersion of knowledge is incredibly beneficial. The fact that it's not all dependent on Rome, on one place, on one empire. The fact that the same knowledge is available to everybody on the planet, no matter where you live, you can access it. And even if the internet goes down, plenty of people go to universities, plenty of books are being read. All that knowledge does exist. It's not like the burning of the Library of Alexandria. I don't think that'll ever happen again. That the real loss of knowledge, and then a global philosophy, Christianity, which it was almost global, at least in the West, that despises knowledge and despises science and despises inquiry and suppresses, as a consequence, all progress, which is what happened during the Dark Ages. Right? Not your average algorithm. Was the tech sector able to generate all this wealth before politicians had any idea how to suppress it? Now that the tech bros have all this wealth, they can lobby politicians not to regulate them. It's not how it works. I mean, again, politicians don't set out to destroy industries. They don't set out to destroy wealth creation. They want wealth creation because they want to be able to tax it and they want to be able to control it. Politicians set out to regulate primarily because they want power over things, and primarily because, and often because something happens, something bad happens, an accident happens, and they need to be perceived as doing something about it. A financial crisis happens, so they need to be perceived as doing something about it, so they regulate the banks. It's not like they regulate the banks because they want to destroy banking. They don't. That's not how they think. They think they are doing good. Now they're evading, but they think they're doing good, and they do it and the only way they can perceive as doing good is by increasing their power. So it's not that, oh, here's the tech industry, we can destroy their wealth today, let's go do it. They don't think that way at all. I mean, they think as AI can do all these negative things, and it can. The real bad things that can be a product of AI. Or they think, oh, people committed suicide after watching Facebook. We should regulate Facebook. We should protect people from Facebook. Facebook is doing bad things to people. Let's regulate Facebook. That's the sequence. So as long as Silicon Valley was small, and the innovations did not have perceived negative effects on people, politicians just stayed clear of it. And you could argue that actually some of the laws that they passed in attempts to define property rights and in attempts to, if you will, regulate lawsuits around the internet, were pretty good. They actually were, because I think they often, they're trying to do what they think is good. We're pretty good. But then some negative consequences happens, like, I don't know, everybody gets pissed off at Twitter because conservatives get banned on Twitter years ago. Let's get rid of section, what was it, 230, which is actually a good section. It's good. It's a good policy. Let's get rid of it. And let's regulate social media because there's a perceived evil. And it's also not true that wealth prevents regulation. I mean, what's his name? Rockefeller was very wealthy when they broke him up. Lots of businesses, most big businesses, were very, very large and significant when they were regulated. And tech will be regulated. The thing that their wealth allows them to do will be to help shape the regulation. But it won't prevent the regulation from happening. And it won't. AI will be regulated. It will be regulated differently under Donald Trump because he has different goals around it than under Democrats. But it will be regulated. It already is regulated. And of course, tech is regulated in a variety of different ways today. But again, you're imputing to politicians motivations that maybe they have in secret. Maybe some of them deep down just want to destroy wealth. But the number of nihilists is relatively small, certainly explicit nihilists, in their own mind explicit. Most of them are just evaders. Most of them are just power-lusting evaders. Clark. The individualists are losing. Left and right are collectivists, absolutely. They're the ones winning elections and they share the same premises. The left is consistent with them, the right is hypocritical about them. Well, I mean, the right is consistent with them as well. The modern right is certainly consistent with them. The modern right has no problems with the collectivistic premises. But yeah, I just described that and I agree with you completely. Free and focused. In Star Trek, a Prime Directive prevents giving advanced tech to barbaric societies. Is there something to this? How dangerous are the products of the mind in the hands of those who reject the supremacy of the mind? I mean, they're very dangerous, and there's absolutely something to it. It's why the world, the civilized world, should have prevented North Korea from accessing a bomb. Right? They should have prevented them from getting nuclear weapons. And they should have bombed them ruthlessly to prevent it. This is why it's right for the civilized world to prevent Iran from getting a bomb. You do not want barbarians to have a weapon that can destroy the planet, can destroy, maybe not the planet, millions of people on the planet. And particularly people who have expressed a willingness to use it. So it's too late with North Korea, but it's not too late with Iran. You've got to stop them from getting it. So yes, there's some technologies that should be, that the bad guys should be barred from having. And this is why I was in favor on some limited restrictions on tech sold to China, if that tech can be obviously used for military purposes. You do not want the Chinese military to keep up with the American military. You want to have an advantage. And you don't want to sell them the tools by which they will kill you with. All right. Jennifer says, do you think it can be valid to say, I laugh so I don't cry? You should take ideas seriously, of course, but sometimes make fun of bad things to help your brain cope. Yeah, I do think. I mean, it's a kind of a last resort in a sense, but yeah, I think sometimes things get so ridiculous, so evil, so pathetic, so nutty, that saying, I gotta laugh because otherwise I'll cry is a legitimate thing to say, even if it's not completely accurate in terms of what it actually reflects and what it actually means. All right, let's see. Yeah, I want to remind you that the best way to support the Yaron Brook Show is through a monthly contribution on patreon.com. Just go to patreon.com, and type in Yaron Brook Show and become a monthly supporter, a regular supporter of the Yaron Brook Show, or become a member here on YouTube. These are the best ways to support the show, in addition to asking questions in the super chat. But it is a great way. All right, we're done with the $20 and $50 questions. We're now down to the 10 and 5 and 2. You can still ask questions, particularly if they're in the 20 plus range. And I will stay here and answer them all. We've already made our second hour goal, but we might go into third hour, and then I'll be asking you for more. Ooh. All right, by the way, if you do $10 a month or more on Patreon, you get a RSM feed, you get a feed, a podcast feed with no commercials. You get to be able to listen to the podcast with no commercials for $10 or more on Patreon, only on Patreon. So check out Patreon if that is of interest to you. It should be to all my podcast listeners. You should all be on Patreon. Should all be at $10 so that you can get the commercial free. So much better. Liam says, does having evil thoughts make you evil? No. I mean, it's worth thinking about why you're having the evil thoughts, and because the evil thoughts could create psychological angst and conflict. But no, just having the thought does not make you evil. It's acting on them or taking them seriously that makes you evil. But if you know they're evil and you dismiss them, you're fine psychologically. You want to find the origin of those thoughts. You want to think about, you want to figure out through introspection and therapy why you're having them so you can get rid of them, because they're not healthy. James, Trump looks like he's fading cognitively. Is he too old to do real damage? I don't think that's right, because I think given his ability to basically do whatever the hell he wants and to control the Republican Party so they will do whatever the hell he wants, his fading cognitively makes him more and more and more dangerous, because nobody will say no to him. Literally, nobody in the Republican Party says no to Donald Trump. So he could be senile and a raving lunatic, which he already is, arguably, and he could get away with murder, and nobody's going to challenge him. As he said in 2016, he could shoot somebody in the middle of Fifth Avenue, and it wouldn't change anything. I think that's true, and it's even more so today. And if he's a raving lunatic, he could do really bad things, and nobody will stop him. Michael, Larry Salzman seems pretty confident in the court's ability to prevent authoritarianism, but it does seem our institutions are not shutting Trump down like they should be. Well, Congress isn't. Congress is complete failure. There's no question about that. But we don't know yet about the courts. Again, the district courts and appellate courts are doing their job, and now it's going to be up to the Supreme Court, and we won't know for another 6 months to a year if the Supreme Court is doing its job or not. So I think it's too early to make that judgment, Michael. And we're not authoritarian yet. This is not authoritarianism. He's an authoritarian president, but there's no reason to believe there'll be no election in 2026. There's no reason to believe there won't be an election in 2028. We have not moved into, we're now a dictatorship. We're not there. Enric says, how would Israeli public react at the end of the war to the murder of the remaining hostages? I mean, they'd be horrified. To what extent would they take it out on Netanyahu and blame him for it? I don't know. Certainly a big segment of the Israeli public hates Netanyahu, has always hated Netanyahu, and I think that segment of the public has only grown since October 7th. And sometimes his popularity increases, like the success with Iran or the success with Hezbollah, but then it plummets again around his indecision about Gaza. And remember, I advocated for taking over Gaza and doing everything they're doing right now, pretty much, 22 months ago. And it should have been done 22 months ago, not now. This is the point that the son of Hamas is making. I advocated for killing Hamas leaders in Qatar 22 months ago. all of this stuff should have happened then, not now. And we wouldn't be in the situation we are now. So I think a lot of the Israeli public will turn against Netanyahu. But then again, he is such a political animal, he manages to survive no matter what. So who knows? Not the average algorithm. If Florida were to eliminate property taxes, would that make it by far the freest state? Do you see other Republican governors copying it? Would you consider retiring there? No, I don't like Florida. I mean, taxes are only one. If I'm going to live in Florida, I might as well just live in Puerto Rico, where I still pay less taxes than Florida. Taxes are one. I don't like Florida. There's a lot. I don't like the weather. I don't like the flatness. I don't like the fact that it's such a magnet for old people, even though I'm one of them. But I want to be in a place with lots of young people, not in a place with a bunch of old people. But would it make it by far the freest state? Probably. It's close anyway. It's in the top 5, I think, in terms of regulations and taxes and so on. This would, and again, it depends on whether they have to increase other taxes in order to make up for the shortfall, right? So it depends what your total tax burden is. But getting rid of property tax is a big deal. This would be great. Will other Republicans governors copying it? I don't think so, because other Republican governments, again, they're all challenged by the fact that they're not cutting spending. So if you don't cut spending, where are you going to get the revenue to cover everything you want to spend money on if you cut a major tax? Where do you get the money? So they have to find an alternative. So I don't think a lot of governors are going to copy it. It would be great if they did. By the way, California, because of a proposition passed in 1978, 77, 78, has capped property taxes. So your property taxes cannot be increased, so it's set by the purchase price. So if you bought property in California a long time ago, your property taxes are very low. My property taxes in California were very low. So in comparison, property taxes in California are probably significantly lower than Texas, and lower than Florida right now. Now Florida will eliminate them, so it'll be low in Florida. But in California, it's low. And again, how are they going to make up for the revenue shortfall? That's what I want to know. Henry says, "Hi, Yaron. I'm weighing up taking a year out to travel. I'm concerned about returning on a lower salary, regressing in my career. Welcome thoughts. Hope to see you again when you're next in UK." Look, it's hard for me to say because I don't know what career you're in. I don't know what the prospects are. I don't know all of that. I don't know how old you are. So hard for me just because, sorry, but I can't remember people. So even though I met you, I don't remember. So I don't know, but generally I'm in favor of taking a year off and traveling, and putting that on your resume and adding that as a kind of a making you more well-rounded. And I don't know that it's going to slow you down, regress your career. It's not necessarily will do so. It could be, you could also spend that year learning new skills, right? I mean, it can't be all just traveling. You'll have spare time. Why not learn a new skill? Really master AI, take some courses online. So if you structure your travel right, particularly if you use it as an opportunity to up skills, then I actually think you won't necessarily take a step down in your career. The younger you do it, the easier it is to do, the more acceptable it is, and the easier it is to enter your career without losing too much. The older it is, the harder it is to do. Once you have a family, of course, it's almost impossible to do. So if you're young, if you don't have a family, if you're in a profession where you can learn on the road and you can study and you can improve your skill set, I'd say do it. Jamie, hello. Wondering your thoughts on the Card and Krueger study on minimum wage from the 90s and the Lester and Reich study titled Minimum Wage Effects Across State Borders, Estimates Using Contiguous Counties. Thank you. If I remember right, Lester and Reich overturn the Card and Krueger study. They show the opposite. Correct me in the chat if I'm wrong. But look, the Card and Krueger study has been criticized from the day it was published. It's not a particularly good study. The change in minimum wage was too small. This study focused on too small of a region, on too short of a time. For every Card and Krueger, there are 10 to 15 studies that show the minimum wages do harm. I keep reading more of them as we go. So, because there's one that managed to squeeze out the empirics to make them right, well, what I'm saying is I think the Lester and Reich study titled Minimum Wage Effects Across State Borders shows that Card and Krueger were wrong, that minimum wage has no effects. Card and Krueger shows that minimum wages do not hurt unemployment, that do not increase unemployment, do not hurt the very poor, there are no victims of minimum wage. For every Card and Krueger study, there are multiple studies that show that they are wrong. And there are a number of studies, I think including the one you're citing, that show that Krug and Card themselves, that show that the original study was flawed in the way it measures the effects and in the way they looked at the region in which the effects were felt or not felt. So I think Card and Krueger is bad economics. And I do Lester and Reich, if I remember right, is better. But, the fact that minimum wage is destructive economically does not require an empirical study. I mean, empirical studies are good to support it, but it does not. It's basic theory. It's basic supply and demand. It's not hard to figure out. It's a law like the law of gravity. And again, there are 10 studies for every one Card and Krueger that show how bad it is actually affecting the economy. There is Nate is asking about the best place to talk online about philosophy. There is a Discord channel, I think, Miroslav, if Miroslav is on here, he can give you the link to the Discord channel where I think they have regular conversations about different topics. But I love that Nate knows everything and it stands above everybody and just judges everybody's opinions from the perspective of he knows everything. Maybe he does. I don't know Nate. Maybe he is all-knowing. Lone dissenter. Trump has been hungry for lower interest rates. Is it possible his appointees are messaging revising data to force the Fed to do it? Not yet. I mean, not yet. And he doesn't want low employment numbers blamed on tariffs. So I don't think so. I think it's not his appointees at BLS producing these numbers. These are Biden appointees producing these numbers, making the Biden administration look worse. Mary Lee says, to call the Trump administration the toddler presidency is an insult to small children. Absolutely true. Absolutely an insult. Ryan, would you like to interview son of Hamas if we can reach out to him and encourage it? Yeah, absolutely. I would like to. I'd enjoy interviewing him. I think he's a real hero and really courageous. Rajiv, Nico says was incredibly good in his Road to Fascism lecture. I agree. Great work AOI is doing in developing new objectivist intellectuals. Thanks to AOI and you. Thank you, Rajiv. Really appreciate that. And I agree about Nikos' talk. Marius, What are your thoughts on the Indonesian and Nepalese protests? I don't know that much about them. This is why I'm not talking a lot about them. Both Nepal and Indonesia are unbelievably corrupt administrations, and people are rebelling against it. I think particularly in Nepal, where it is very socialist, my understanding, and very repressive and very corrupt administration. People are going onto the streets demonstrating against them, and I think that's a good thing. So I support any change that brings about more freedom. I don't know anything about the Indonesian demonstrations right now and what they are demonstrating for. So I haven't read up on either of those, so I shouldn't talk about them when I don't know anything about them. I'll try to read up on Nepal because Nepal seems to be really heating up. I think they just burned down part of the parliament. A.E. Art says, is Trump the ultimate pragmatist? Is pragmatism in the U.S. past responsible for the void that made today's U.S. political state possible? Yes. So the answer to the second question is yes. It's pragmatism in the U.S. past that made Trump possible. Trump is beyond pragmatism. Trump is just a whim-worshipping thug. Trump is just a whim-worshipping thug. He's not an adherent like, Kennedy, to any kind of set of ideas about how to make decisions. Short term, don't think in principles, not long term. He's just emotes. He just does what he feels like doing. And he does it in a way like a mafia boss. Mafia bosses behave this way, right? You can't say a mafia boss is pragmatist. They're just thugs. Kim, tips on moving up in a financial operations career. I don't know if I have tips. Generally, tip for moving up in any career is do a good job, be responsible, seek input, seek feedback from your manager, develop that kind of relationship with the manager where you expect feedback, negative and positive, and develop a skill set, improve your knowledge. So, in spite of the fact that Nate thinks that AI is retarded, AI is going to be an amazing tool for financial operations. It is. It's going to allow you amazing shortcuts. It's going to allow you to use whatever software you're using for financial operations to do it much more effectively, much faster, much more productively. It is an amazing tool. And as such, use it. Learn how to use it, study it, introduce new ways to your boss on how to improve what you're doing. Don't wait for them to tell you. Keep innovating, keep thinking, and keep engaging with your boss at that level, but learn how to do your job better. Learn new skills, constant learning in life generally, in career for sure. Not your average algorithm. Not sure if you already commented on this, but thoughts on Ukrainian refugee girl stabbing to death on the bus in North Carolina. Trump has latched onto this to rally his racist, mindless base. Yeah, it's obviously tragic and horrible, and this guy should probably have not been on the streets. I haven't read his rap sheet, but he's a repeat offender, and I am very much for. I'm very much for. Somebody is a violent criminal, at some point throwing away the keys and not allowing them back. I think that the way the right and Trump are using this is sick and irresponsible. They're using this in order to say, look how bad crime is in the world as crime is plummeting. So yeah, crime is, when it happens, it's horrible. And when it happens on video, it's even more horrible. Crime like this happens every day, but you don't get a video of it. So it really is sad. And yeah, I mean, I'm all for tougher sentences on violent crime. Much tougher sentences on violent criminals. Ben Jackson recently moved to France for career growth, travel, and wife's family. Yes, it's bureaucratic, but I find value in being here. End of the day, you have to live your life, pursue your values, thoughts. Yeah, I agree. I mean, and you don't have to live in one place the rest of your life. You should live where you're going to live the best life possible to you at that point in time. And if that's France right now, great. And if that's somewhere else in 5 years, great. In that sense, I am, I hate to use the term, but a globalist. Take advantage of the fact that we live in a world where you can travel, you can live in lots of places, you can experience lots of amazing experiences, lots of amazing cultures. Great food in France, great art in France. So yeah, get out there and see the world. I tell everybody that. So I'm absolutely in agreement. I'm spending a month in Florence. I just spent 3 weeks in Lisbon. Last year I spent 6 weeks in Barcelona. Who knows where I'll spend next year? And I live in Puerto Rico. Who could have ever imagined I would live in Puerto Rico? So you go where your values dictate, not where your birth dictates. iCarnivore. Is it undignified to spray whipped cream directly from the can directly onto one's mouth while standing at an open fridge? It is delicious, so your answer won't stop me. Keep up the good work. No, I mean, it might be undignified to do it in a 3-star Michelin restaurant. It might be undignified to do it in public. But in front of your own fridge, of course, whatever makes, whatever, right? I mean, of course it's dignified in front of your own fridge. And if it's delicious to do so, then it would be undignified not to do it. Anne says, another Ayn Rand group announced Peacock is speaking at their event next month. Is a fourth branch of the movement emerging? I don't know, maybe. I think this is the one from Ayn Rand Center UK. They're putting on a conference. I didn't know Leonard was speaking there. But it doesn't surprise me. Razi, who runs that, has a good relationship with Leonard, or has had a good relationship over the last couple of years with Leonard. So they are putting it together. Is ARC UK a fourth branch of Object? I don't know what that means. I don't know what the movement means. Are there 4 branches? Is the Atlas Society a branch of Objectivism? I don't think so, because I don't count them. But look, my view is, and has been for at least a decade, maybe 2, that the more successful Objectivism is, the bigger Objectivism becomes. Call it a movement, call it what you want. The more people will be doing more things independently of one another. More organizations started, more think tanks established, more intellectuals doing things, coordinated with the Ayn Rand Institute or not. That is, the job of the Ayn Rand Institute is not to be some kind of a gatekeeper, coordinator of all stuff, that is done under the ban of Ayn Rand. We can't do that. Other stuff will emerge. So let it happen, let it rip, and I love the competition, and let the better conferences succeed and the less conferences not succeed, and let and from a philosophical perspective, the thing that Ayn Rand Institute is committed to, which I don't think any of these other institutions are committed to, and even if they were, they don't have the talent to do it, is the Ayn Rand Institute is committed to preserving Ayn Rand's philosophy, qua Ayn Rand's philosophy. We might comment We might apply it in a variety of different ways, but we refer to original sources. We keep those original sources alive. We continue to teach from original sources, and we are dedicated to preserving the philosophy as Ayn Rand presented it. That's the one thing we are committed to, that none of these other things are not. And I'm not going to comment on Leonard's giving the talk. All right, Michael says, will Israel eventually take out Ayatollah? Maybe. I don't know. I don't think so. They had their chance. But maybe if the circumstances arise, if Iran becomes aggressive, then they might. Ayatollah might die any day now anyway. He's pretty old, so he might die. But anyway, that is the Yaron Brook Show for today. Thank you guys. I appreciate it. Thanks to all the super chatters. Thanks for all the support. I will see you guys all tomorrow. I think at the same time. We should be fine for the same time. I look forward to seeing you tomorrow with the news and with discussion and debate. And have a great rest of your week. Bye, everybody. Don't forget to support the show on Patreon, patreon.com. Bye.